The Galactic Council's emergency session had been called in the dead of night. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vorthan Empire sat stiffly in his crystalline chair, his 6 arms folded in disapproval as holographic displays flickered around the circular chamber. The subject of tonight's debate was causing unprecedented controversy across 17 star systems. The video has been viewed over 3 billion times in the past 48 hours, announced Director Yalis, her tentacles writhing with nervous energy. Every major news network from here to the Outer Rim is demanding answers. The footage in question played on the central display for the 100th time that evening. It showed what appeared to be a small human child, no more than 12 standard years old by their species measurements, standing in the center of a combat arena. The child had pale skin, dark hair tied back in simple braids, and wore nothing more than basic training gear. She looked impossibly fragile against the towering alien warriors surrounding her. "This is absurd," growled General Morthak, his tusks gleaming as he spoke. "The humans claim this. This infant defeated our finest warriors in single combat. It must be some form of technological trickery, but the recordings didn't lie. The child moved with fluid grace that defied explanation. When the first challenger, a massive Krillian berserker standing nearly 3 meters tall, charged at her with bone-crushing force, she simply stepped aside. The creature's momentum carried him past her, and before he could turn around, she had somehow positioned herself perfectly to deliver a precise strike to a nerve cluster behind his knee. The giant warrior collapsed instantly. Ambassador Krivax of the Trade Federation leaned forward, his insectoid features clicking with concern. "Our medical experts have analyzed the footage frame by frame. There are no signs of technological enhancement. No energy weapons, no protective fields. This appears to be purely biological capability." The second challenger had been even more disturbing to watch. A Vorthan shock trooper, armed with plasma blades and wearing combat armor that could deflect artillery shells, had lasted exactly 17 seconds. The human child had somehow predicted every move, countering each attack with movements so precise they seemed choreographed. When the trooper stumbled, overextended from a missed strike, the child had simply touched a specific point on his armor. The supposedly impenetrable suit had powered down completely, leaving the warrior helpless. The humans refused to explain how this is possible. Director Yalis continued, her voice strained. "They claim the child is simply talented, and that such abilities are not uncommon among their young." This statement sent ripples of unease through the assembled delegates. For over 2 centuries, the galaxy had operated under the assumption that humans were weak. Their bodies seemed fragile, their technology primitive, their military forces small and poorly equipped compared to the great galactic powers. They had been granted membership in the Galactic Council, more as a curiosity than a legitimate threat. The third and final challenger in the video had been the most shocking. Commander Thelros, legendary champion of the hegemony's elite guard, had volunteered to restore galactic pride. His species had evolved on a high-gravity world, making them naturally stronger and faster than most sentient races. He had won over 300 formal duels and had never tasted defeat. The human child had ended his winning streak in under a minute. She hadn't even seemed to be trying. While Thelros had attacked with berserker fury, the child had remained calm, almost bored. Every punch, kick, and grappling attempt had been effortlessly avoided or redirected. When the commander finally exhausted himself, the child had simply placed her small hand on his forehead. Whatever she did in that moment caused the mighty warrior to collapse unconscious, without any visible injury. "The implications are terrifying," whispered Senator Morden, her voice barely audible through the chamber's translation systems. "If their children possess such capabilities, what are their adults capable of? What are their soldiers capable of?" The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. For generations, the galaxy's power structure had been built on the assumption of human weakness. Trade agreements, military alliances, territorial disputes, all had been negotiated with the understanding that humanity posed no significant threat to the established order. But if this video was authentic, if human children could casually defeat the galaxy's finest warriors, then everything needed to be reconsidered. "We need answers," declared Ambassador Zethkar, his voice carrying the authority of one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. "I propose we send a formal delegation to Earth. We must understand the true extent of human capabilities before this revelation destabilizes our entire civilization. The motion was seconded by dozen voices and passed without opposition. As the session adjourned, none of the delegates spoke of their private fears. Each was wondering the same thing. If the humans had been hiding such abilities, what else were they concealing? In the depths of space, the video continued to spread. Across 1,000 worlds, military commanders watched in growing alarm as their assumptions about human weakness crumbled. The galactic balance of power, stable for centuries, had been shattered by 90 seconds of footage showing a child at play. The girl in the video had no idea that her casual demonstration would reshape the galaxy. She had simply been showing off for her friends, demonstrating techniques her grandmother had taught her during their weekly training sessions. To her, it was just another boring afternoon at the youth center. To the galaxy watching, it was the beginning of a new and uncertain age. The delegation ship, Harmony of Worlds, approached Earth's solar system with unprecedented caution. Ambassador Zethkar stood on the bridge, his multiple eyes focused on the tactical displays showing the surprisingly sparse human defenses. A few orbital platforms, some patrol ships that looked like antiques compared to galactic standard technology, and what appeared to be converted mining vessels pressed into military service. Scans confirm what our intelligence report suggested, announced Commander Veltar, the ship's tactical officer. Human technology is indeed primitive. Their most advanced warships appear to be centuries behind our current capabilities. But the crew remained tense despite the obvious technological advantage. The video of the human child had spread throughout the galaxy, spawning countless theories and wild speculation. Some claimed it was an elaborate hoax. Others suggested the humans possessed psychic abilities, and a few radical voices even proposed that humans were somehow a warrior race that had been hiding their true nature. Dr. Silex, the expedition's xenobiologist, studied the incoming data with growing confusion. The biological scans are inconsistent with what we observed in the combat footage. Human physiology appears to be exactly as we documented during first contact. Relatively low bone density, limited muscle mass, average neural processing speed. There's nothing that should allow for the capabilities we witnessed. The communication array crackled to life as Earth traffic control contacted them. The voice was distinctly human, speaking in their oddly musical language before the translation matrix converted it to standard galactic. Welcome to the Sol system, Harmony of Worlds. We've been expecting you. Please maintain current heading and prepare for escort to Luna Station. 3 small human ships emerged from behind Earth's moon, moving with formations that seemed almost casual compared to the rigid military protocols favored by most galactic powers. Yet there was something unsettling about their approach patterns, something that made Commander Veltar's combat instincts stir uneasily. Ambassador, he said quietly, those escort ships are positioning themselves in an optimal attack formation, while appearing completely peaceful. It's sophisticated. Ambassador Zethkar's primary arms twitched with nervousness. He had decades of diplomatic experience, but nothing had prepared him for this strange contradiction between apparent human weakness and demonstrated capability. Maintain all courtesy protocols. We cannot afford to give offense. Luna Station was a modest facility by galactic standards, clearly built with human technology and design principles. As their shuttle docked, the delegation was greeted by a surprisingly small welcoming party. A middle-aged human woman in simple diplomatic robes, flanked by 2 guards who looked more like ceremonial escorts than serious military personnel. Ambassador Zethkar, the woman said with a warm smile, I'm Secretary Harrison, Earth's liaison for interstellar affairs. Welcome to our system. The informality was jarring. In galactic diplomacy, first meetings involved elaborate ceremonies, formal presentations of credentials, and carefully choreographed demonstrations of military might. Yet here was humanity's representative treating this momentous occasion as casually as a routine trade negotiation. Thank you for receiving us. Secretary Harrison, Ambassador Zethkar replied, struggling to match her relaxed tone. We come seeking clarification regarding recent developments that have caused considerable concern throughout the galaxy. Secretary Harrison's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. You mean the video of Sarah, I assume? Yes, we've been monitoring the galactic response. Quite remarkable how much attention a child's training exercise can generate. The casual dismissal of what the galaxy considered a paradigm-shifting revelation sent shockwaves through the delegation. Dr. Silex stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overriding diplomatic protocol. Secretary, our analysis suggests that the combat capabilities displayed in that recording far exceed any known human baseline. How do you explain such extraordinary abilities in one so young? Oh, Sarah's quite gifted. Secretary Harrison replied with the same tone she might use to discuss the weather. Though honestly, she's not exceptional by our standards. Most children, her age, could demonstrate similar skills given proper training. The delegation exchanged alarmed glances. If this was true, if most human children possessed such capabilities, then the implications were staggering. Yet Secretary Harrison spoke as if discussing a completely mundane topic. Perhaps, Ambassador, Zethkar suggested carefully, we might observe some of these training methods, for scientific purposes, of course. Secretary Harrison's smile widened slightly. Certainly. We've arranged a demonstration at one of our youth development centers. I think you'll find it illuminating. As they traveled to the surface via shuttle, Dr. Silex continued his scans of the human population below. The readings remained stubbornly normal. Heart rates, brain activity, muscle density, bone structure, all fell within the expected parameters for their species. Whatever allowed humans to perform such remarkable feats wasn't showing up on any of their sensors. The youth center was a modest building in what appeared to be a suburban area. Children could be seen playing in outdoor areas, their activities looking completely ordinary. Some kicked balls across grass fields, others climbed simple structures, and a few sat quietly reading under trees. Nothing suggested the presence of warriors in training. The children seemed so normal, observed Commander Veltar, his voice carrying a note of confusion. They are normal, Secretary Harrison replied. Human children have always been this way. Perhaps the galaxy simply hasn't been paying close attention. Inside the facility, they were introduced to Master Chen, an elderly human who served as one of the primary instructors. He was small even by human standards, with gray hair and weathered features that spoke of advanced age. Yet when he moved, there was something in his bearing that made the battle-hardened Commander Veltar instinctively step back. Master Chen has volunteered to demonstrate some basic techniques, Secretary Harrison explained. Nothing advanced, of course. We wouldn't want to alarm our guests. The demonstration area was a simple room with padded floors and minimal equipment. A dozen human children, ranging in apparent age from 8 to 15 standard years, filed in wearing simple exercise clothes. They looked exactly like what they were supposed to be. Young members of a supposedly peaceful species engaging in routine physical education. Today we'll show our visitors some fundamental movement exercises, Master Chen announced in a gentle voice. Remember, precision over power, awareness over aggression. What followed challenged every assumption the delegation had held about human nature. The children moved through complex sequences that flowed like dance but carried the unmistakable precision of deadly combat arts. Their movements were perfectly coordinated, their timing flawless, their technique displaying levels of skill that should have taken decades to develop. Yet to them, it was clearly just another day of routine training. The youngest child, a boy, who couldn't have been more than 9 years old, demonstrated a technique that would have allowed him to disable any member of the delegation's security detail in seconds. He performed it with the same casual competence another child might show while tying shoes. As the demonstration concluded, Ambassador Zethkar realized that the galaxy had made a fundamental error. They hadn't been dealing with a weak species that was hiding strength. They had been dealing with a species so naturally gifted at warfare that they didn't even recognize their own capabilities as unusual. The humans weren't trying to deceive anyone. They genuinely didn't understand why the galaxy was so impressed by what they considered basic childhood education. The evening meal at the human diplomatic facility was an exercise in barely controlled tension. Ambassador Zethkar found himself studying every movement of their human hosts, looking for signs of the deadly capabilities they had witnessed during the afternoon demonstration. Yet Secretary Harrison simply passed serving dishes and made pleasant conversation about Earth's agricultural exports. The harvest this season has been particularly good, she mentioned while offering what appeared to be fermented fruit. Our farmers have developed some interesting techniques for soil optimization. Dr. Silex, still processing the day's revelations, couldn't contain his scientific curiosity any longer. Secretary Harrison, I must ask directly. Do your people truly not understand how extraordinary your abilities appear to other species? Secretary Harrison paused, her expression thoughtful. Dr. Silex, may I ask about your own species development? What did your children learn during their formative years? Standard educational protocols, the xenobiologist replied. Language acquisition, basic mathematics, social interaction guidelines, simple motor skills development, and physical education? Basic coordination exercises, nothing that could be considered combat training if that's what you're suggesting. Secretary Harrison nodded slowly. I think I'm beginning to understand the confusion. Human children have always learned what you observed today. It's part of our basic education. We call it physical education, conflict resolution, and situational awareness training. Commander Veltar's mandibles clicked with agitation. Conflict resolution? Those children could eliminate trained soldiers. Could they? Secretary Harrison seemed genuinely surprised. I suppose from your perspective that might appear to be the case. But understand, Commander, those children were demonstrating techniques designed to end conflicts quickly and humanely. The goal is always de-escalation. De-escalation, Ambassador Zethkar repeated slowly. By rendering opponents unconscious. Well, yes. Unconscious opponents rarely continue fighting. It's much more humane than the alternatives. The casual way she discussed incapacitating trained warriors sent chills through the delegation. 2. Humans, apparently. The ability to instantly neutralize any threat was simply a tool for maintaining peace. Master Chen, who had been invited to join them for the evening meal, spoke up in his gentle voice. Perhaps it would help if I explained our philosophy. Human history has been marked by considerable conflict. Over time, we learned that the most effective way to preserve peace is to ensure that violence becomes unprofitable. Unprofitable? Dr. Silex asked. When any individual, regardless of their intentions, knows that aggression will result in immediate and decisive defeat, they naturally choose alternative solutions to their problems. This has been our way for many generations. Ambassador Zethkar was beginning to piece together a terrifying picture. Are you saying that all humans possess these capabilities? To varying degrees, Master Chen confirmed. Some specialize in different aspects. Sarah, the child from your viral video, has particular gifts for reading movement patterns and predicting intentions. Her grandmother was similar. Her grandmother taught her? Of course. These skills are traditionally passed down through family lines, though formal education supplements the basics. Secretary Harrison smiled at what she apparently considered fond family tradition. Sarah's grandmother was quite accomplished in her younger days, won several international competitions before settling down to teach. The delegation exchanged worried glances. International competitions suggested that humans had somehow turned combat skills into entertainment, which implied a level of widespread competence that was staggering to contemplate. What? Commander Veltar asked carefully. Do you consider advanced capabilities? Master Chen's eyes twinkled with what might have been amusement. Well, true masters can read micro-expressions to predict actions several moves in advance, influence, autonomic nervous system responses through pressure point manipulation, and maintain simultaneous awareness of multiple opponents in complex environments. And how common are such masters? Not terribly common. Perhaps 1 in every few thousand individuals reaches that level of skill. Dr. Silex quickly calculated the numbers. With Earth's population in the billions, that suggested thousands of individuals with capabilities that would make them virtually unstoppable on any galactic battlefield. Secretary Harrison noticed their expressions and her own became more serious. I'm beginning to sense that we may have inadvertently caused some alarm throughout the galaxy. That wasn't our intention. The video of Sarah has indeed caused considerable concern, Ambassador Zethkar admitted. I see. And I suppose seeing today's demonstration hasn't helped ease those concerns. The honesty in her voice made it clear that humans genuinely hadn't anticipated the galactic reaction to what they considered routine childhood development. Master Chen set down his eating utensil and spoke thoughtfully. Perhaps we should have been more forthcoming about our educational practices during first contact. It simply never occurred to us that other species might not teach similar skills to their young. Similar skills? Commander Veltar repeated hollowly. Situational awareness, threat assessment, conflict de-escalation through SUP. Area positioning, basic survival skills that any responsible parent would want their children to possess. The terrifying reality was becoming clear. Humans didn't train their children to be warriors because they were an aggressive species. They trained them to be warriors because, to humans, not knowing how to fight was as irresponsible as not teaching children to swim or read. Secretary Harrison, Ambassador Zethkar said carefully, I believe we need to arrange a full cultural exchange program. The galaxy needs to understand human society better before misunderstandings occur. Secretary Harrison nodded gravely. That sounds very wise. We certainly don't want any conflicts arising from simple miscommunication. The way she said conflicts made it clear that, from the human perspective, any military confrontation with the galaxy would indeed be a tragic misunderstanding rather than a serious threat. As the evening concluded, the delegation retired to their quarters with much to discuss. They had come seeking answers about human capabilities and had discovered something far more disturbing than a hidden warrior culture. They had discovered a species so naturally gifted at warfare that they had turned the systematic training of deadly combat skills into routine childhood education and considered it a perfectly normal part of raising responsible citizens. The galaxy's assumptions about human weakness hadn't just been wrong. They had been catastrophically, dangerously wrong. Outside their windows, Earth cities glowed peacefully in the darkness, populated by billions of individuals who considered the casual defeat of galactic elite warriors to be unremarkable child's play. The emergency session of the Galactic Military Council convened 3 days after the delegation's preliminary report reached the capital. Fleet Admiral Korvash of the Hegemony Navy stood before the assembled commanders, his scaled features grim as he addressed the crisis that was rapidly developing. The situation is worse than we initially feared, he announced, activating a holographic display that showed human population centers across Earth. Our diplomatic team's investigation has revealed that what we witnessed in the viral video represents standard human childhood education. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembled military leaders. General Thainter of the Assault Corps leaned forward, her cybernetic implants clicking with agitation. Admiral, are you telling us that every human child receives combat training equivalent to our elite special forces? According to the preliminary reports, yes. But it gets worse. They don't consider it combat training. To them, it's basic education like mathematics or language skills. The implications hit the room like a physical blow. For over 2 centuries, military doctrine had been built around the assumption that humans were weak allies at best, negligible opponents at worst. Suddenly, the galaxy was faced with the possibility that every human civilian possessed capabilities that exceeded their finest soldiers. What about their actual military forces? Asked Commander Erix of the Border Defense Fleet. If their children are this capable, what are their trained soldiers like? Fleet Admiral Korvash's expression grew even more grim. Our delegation requested a demonstration of human military capabilities. The request was politely declined. Declined? Why would they refuse to show their strength? According to Secretary Harrison, they felt it would be inappropriate to display serious techniques to guests. She suggested that such a demonstration might cause unnecessary alarm. The silence that followed was deafening. The humans were declining to demonstrate their military capabilities out of politeness, treating the galaxy's elite commanders like children who might be frightened by adult activities. Dr. Velkari, the Council's chief xenobiologist, activated her own display showing biological scan data. I've analyzed all available information on human physiology. The paradox remains. Their bodies show no signs of the modifications or enhancements that should be necessary for such capabilities. Whatever allows them to perform these feats appears to be completely natural. Natural evolution doesn't produce such abilities without environmental pressure, General Thaintor objected. What could have driven their development? According to historical records provided by the humans themselves, their species has engaged in almost continuous warfare throughout their recorded history. Not just tribal conflicts or territorial disputes, but organized military campaigns involving millions of individuals. The assembled commanders absorbed this information with growing unease. Most galactic species had achieved interstellar travel through periods of extended peace and cooperation. The idea of a species advancing technologically while simultaneously perfecting the arts of war was deeply unsettling. There's more, Dr. Velkari continued. Human children don't just learn combat techniques. They learn what they call strategy games that simulate complex military operations. They treat warfare as a subject of academic study. Fleet Admiral Korvash pulled up additional data. Our intelligence analysis suggests that human entertainment media frequently features military themes. They appear to find warfare fascinating. Entertainment? Commander Irix's voice carried a note of disbelief. They make entertainment out of military conflict? Extensive entertainment. Their popular culture includes detailed simulations of historical battles, speculative future conflicts, and fictional wars involving impossible technologies. They study warfare the way other species study art or philosophy. The revelation sent shockwaves through the council. A species that treated warfare as entertainment suggested a level of comfort with violence that was terrifying to contemplate. General Thanator stood abruptly. We need to reconsider our entire relationship with humanity. If these reports are accurate, they represent the single greatest military threat the galaxy has ever faced. But do they? Fleet Admiral Korvash asked quietly. That's the question that keeps me awake at night. By all accounts, humans have been perfectly peaceful neighbors for over 2 centuries. They've honored every treaty, participated in joint operations, and never shown any signs of aggressive intent. Perhaps they've been waiting for the right moment, suggested Commander Irix. Or perhaps, Dr. Velkari offered. Their capabilities are precisely why they're peaceful. When you possess overwhelming advantages, violence becomes unnecessary. The concept was difficult for military minds to grasp. In galactic civilization, strength was typically displayed as a deterrent. Yet humans seem to keep their true capabilities completely hidden, treating galaxy-shaking combat skills as routine and unremarkable. What's our current tactical assessment? Fleet Admiral Korvash asked his strategic planning staff. Commander Zalith, head of tactical analysis, activated a comprehensive display. Based on observed capabilities of their children and extrapolating to adult populations, any military confrontation with humanity would be inadvisable. Define inadvisable. Total defeat within hours, possibly minutes. Our technology advantages would be meaningless if our crews could be incapacitated before weapons could be brought to bear. The stark assessment hung in the air like a death sentence. The galaxy's combined military might, built up over centuries of careful planning and technological advancement, would be useless against an enemy that could end conflicts through personal combat capabilities alone. Recommendations? Fleet Admiral Korvash asked. Immediate revision of all diplomatic protocols, General Thanator replied grimly. We need to ensure that humanity never has reason to consider us a threat. Agreed. But there's another concern. Other species are beginning to ask questions about human capabilities. Some are demanding that the Galactic Council take action to address what they see as a hidden threat. Commander Irix nodded gravely. The consortium has already begun debating a resolution calling for mandatory disclosure of all species' military capabilities. They're specifically targeting humanity. That could be catastrophic, Dr. Velkari warned. If humans are forced to publicly demonstrate their actual capabilities, it could destabilize the entire galactic order. Fleet Admiral Korvash made his decision. We need to control the narrative. Humanity must appear to be cooperative while avoiding any situation that would require them to reveal their true strength. The alternative is galactic panic. And if the consortium demands a demonstration anyway, the Fleet Admiral's expression grew dark. Then we pray that humanity continues to consider the rest of the galaxy worthy of protection rather than elimination. As the meeting adjourned, each commander left with the same troubling thought. They had spent their careers preparing for conflicts between galactic powers with roughly equivalent capabilities. None of them had training for managing a relationship with a species that could, apparently, end any such conflict with the casual ease of adults disciplining unruly children. The galaxy's military leadership now faced an unprecedented challenge: how to maintain peace with neighbors who were so overwhelmingly powerful that they didn't even realize they were powerful. The consortium assembly hall buzzed with tension as representatives from 47 star systems gathered for an emergency session. Ambassador Thelmora of the consortium trade worlds had called for this meeting after weeks of growing panic throughout the galaxy. The human delegation sat quietly in their assigned section, seemingly unaware of the storm of controversy surrounding them. "The motion before us is simple," Ambassador Thelmora announced, her crystalline voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "Mandatory demonstration of all member species' true military capabilities. No more secrets, no more hidden advantages. Complete transparency for the safety of all." Ambassador Harrison sat calmly beside her small human delegation, appearing relaxed despite the hostile atmosphere. Her aide, a young man named David Chen, who appeared to be Master Chen's grandson, took occasional notes on a simple tablet device. "The consortium has legitimate concerns," acknowledged Senator Veltar of the Neutral Worlds. "The revelation of undisclosed human capabilities has shaken confidence in the treaty system that maintains galactic peace." Ambassador Zethkar, who had led the original investigation to Earth, stood to address the assembly. "Honored representatives, I urge caution. The humans have shown nothing but peaceful intent for over 2 centuries. Their capabilities, while remarkable, have never been used aggressively." "That we know of," interrupted General Mordrex of the military coalition. "How many other demonstrations of power have been dismissed as hoaxes or ignored? How many of our finest warriors have been defeated by humans who were supposedly just playing around?" The accusation sent murmurs through the assembly. It was true that upon review, several unexplained defeats of galactic military personnel could now be attributed to casual encounters with humans who had been engaging in recreational activities. Ambassador Harrison finally stood, her movement causing the entire chamber to fall silent. When she spoke, her voice carried the same calm tone she had used throughout the crisis. "Honored representatives, we understand your concerns. Humanity has no desire to cause alarm or destabilize galactic relations. If a demonstration of our capabilities would ease these tensions, we are willing to participate." The offer sent shockwaves through the assembly. For weeks, military analysts had speculated about human strength while hoping never to see it displayed. Now the humans were volunteering to show their true abilities. "However," Ambassador Harrison continued, "we must insist on certain conditions. The demonstration must be controlled, limited in scope, and designed to minimize potential trauma to observers." "Trauma?" Ambassador Thelmora's crystalline features flickered with confusion. "We are requesting a military demonstration, not a horror exhibition." "Of course. But our preliminary assessment suggests that an uncontrolled display might cause unnecessary distress. We propose a simple format: a limited engagement between volunteer representatives and our own personnel." General Mordrex leaned forward aggressively. "I volunteer to represent the military coalition. Let's see what these mysterious human abilities actually amount to." Ambassador Harrison glanced at her aide, David Chen, who nodded slightly. "Very well. David will represent humanity. I should mention that he's recently completed his education and would welcome the practice." The casual dismissal of what was supposed to be a serious military evaluation stunned the assembly. The humans were treating this momentous demonstration as a training exercise for their youth. The exhibition hall attached to the assembly building was hastily converted into an arena. Medical teams from 17 species stood ready to treat injuries, while recording equipment captured every angle of the upcoming encounter. Representatives from across the galaxy filled observation areas, their various forms of nervous energy creating an atmosphere of barely controlled tension. General Mordrex entered the arena wearing full combat gear. His armor could deflect energy weapons, his personal shields could absorb the impact of explosive devices, and his augmented strength was sufficient to bend steel beams. He had spent 3 decades perfecting combat techniques and had never been defeated in formal combat. David Chen walked into the arena wearing simple exercise clothes and carrying nothing but a bottle of water. He appeared to be in his early 20s by human standards, with the same kind of unremarkable features that characterized most of his species. He moved with casual confidence, like someone heading to a routine training session. "Begin when ready," announced the referee. a neutral third party from the Administrative Council. General Mordrex immediately activated all his combat systems and charged forward with devastating force. His approach was perfectly executed, his timing flawless, his technique refined by decades of experience. David Chen sidestepped the charge with minimal effort, placed one hand on the general's armored shoulder, and somehow caused the massive warrior to flip completely over and land heavily on his back. The entire sequence took less than 3 seconds. The arena fell silent except for the hum of recording equipment. General Mordrex struggled to his feet, his pride more injured than his body. Lucky move. Let's try that again. The second exchange lasted even less time. The general's carefully planned attack was redirected with such precise timing that he ended up face down on the arena floor, completely immobilized by what appeared to be a simple grip on his wrist. Yield, the general gasped, his voice carrying both pain and disbelief. David Chen released him immediately and offered a hand to help him stand. Good technique, he said encouragingly. Your approach showed excellent tactical thinking. The condescending praise from someone who had just effortlessly defeated a legendary warrior sent ripples of shock through the watching delegates. Ambassador Harrison's voice carried clearly through the arena's address system. Would any other representatives like to participate in the demonstration? The silence stretched uncomfortably. Every military leader present had just watched their finest warrior treated like a beginning student. None wished to volunteer for similar humiliation. Perhaps a group exercise would be more informative, suggested Ambassador Thelmora, her crystalline voice tight with frustration. If you prefer, Ambassador Harrison replied calmly. David, would you mind accommodating a larger group? No problem, David replied, taking a sip from his water bottle. How many? The casual question highlighted the enormous gap between human and galactic perspectives on combat. To David, the number of opponents was merely a logistical detail rather than a serious tactical consideration. 5, General Mordrex declared, his voice carrying both anger and desperation. The best warriors from 5 different species. Sounds reasonable, David agreed. What followed was less a combat demonstration than a physics lesson in applied leverage and timing. 5 of the galaxy's elite warriors, representing the finest military traditions of their respective species, were systematically and effortlessly defeated by a young human who treated the entire exercise as mild entertainment. The techniques David employed were clearly basic applications of principles that any human child would understand. He wasn't displaying advanced capabilities or secret techniques. He was simply demonstrating the fundamental combat skills that humanity considered routine education. When the demonstration concluded, with all 5 galactic warriors lying unconscious or immobilized, David helped each of them to their feet and offered polite compliments on their effort. Thank you for the practice, he told them sincerely. It's always helpful to work with different fighting styles. The gratitude in his voice made it clear that from his perspective, the galactic elite had done him a favor by providing training opportunities. Ambassador Harrison addressed the stunned assembly. We hope this demonstration has provided the transparency you requested. Are there any questions about human capabilities? The question hung in the air unanswered. Every representative present was struggling to process what they had witnessed, while simultaneously wondering what capabilities humanity considered actually advanced if this was merely basic education. The galaxy had demanded to see human strength, and humanity had politely obliged. The revelation that their most feared warriors could be casually defeated by a recent graduate of human educational programs had answered the consortium's questions while raising far more terrifying possibilities. In the silence that followed, everyone present realized that they had made a fundamental error. They had assumed that demanding transparency from humanity would give them leverage in future negotiations. Instead, they had discovered that leverage was a meaningless concept when dealing with a species that could effortlessly neutralize any threat while treating such conflicts as routine training exercises. The aftermath of the consortium demonstration spread through galactic civilization like wildfire. Within hours, recordings of David Chen's effortless defeat of 5 elite warriors had been viewed billions of times across hundreds of worlds. The implications were so staggering that many species called emergency sessions of their governing bodies to discuss the crisis. On the hegemony capital world of Korath Prime, Supreme Commander Velthanor stood before the war, council with reports that defied everything they thought. They knew about galactic military balance. Intelligence analysis has identified over 300 historical incidents that now make sense in light of these revelations, he announced, his massive frame rigid with tension, supposedly accidental defeats of our personnel, unexplained equipment failures during joint operations, and training exercises where human participants achieved impossible results. Council member Thexlar's tentacles writhed with agony. Itation. Are you saying the humans have been systematically deceiving us for centuries? No, that's what makes this so disturbing. Review of the incidents shows no evidence of deception. In every case, the humans appeared genuinely surprised by their own success. They weren't hiding their abilities. They simply didn't realize those abilities were extraordinary. The concept was difficult for military minds to grasp. Deception, they understood. Strategic misdirection was a standard component of warfare, but a species that possessed overwhelming advantages while remaining genuinely unaware of their significance was unprecedented. Meanwhile, on the Trade Federation's central hub, economic analysts were reaching even more troubling conclusions. Director Mulkari addressed an emergency meeting of the Economic Council, with projections that threatened the foundation of galactic commerce. If these human capabilities are authentic, then our entire economic model is built on false assumptions, she declared, her insectoid features clicking with anxiety. We've been treating humanity as a minor economic partner, while they possess the ability to dominate any market through simple physical superiority. Surely, you're exaggerating, protested Trade Minister Yextor. Economic competition doesn't involve physical combat, doesn't it? Consider asteroid mining operations where human workers routinely outperform automated systems. We assumed it was primitive technology. Now we realize they were literally doing by hand what requires our most advanced machinery. The revelation recontextualized centuries of economic data, human efficiency in dangerous occupations, their ability to work in hostile environments without protective equipment, their casual success in industries that required precise physical coordination. All of it suddenly made terrifying sense. Back on Earth, the human government was dealing with an unprecedented diplomatic crisis. Secretary Harrison sat in an emergency cabinet meeting as reports flooded, and from human embassies across the galaxy, the consortium has formally requested that we provide detailed documentation of all human capabilities, reported Foreign Minister Adams. 17 species have submitted similar requests. The hegemony is demanding military advisors be assigned to oversee our educational programs. They want to monitor our schools? President Martinez asked incredulously. Apparently they consider our elementary education to be a weapons program. Secretary Harrison replied with weary amusement. Master Chen has been classified as a strategic resource by 3 different governments. The irony wasn't lost on anyone present. Humanity had spent centuries trying to prove themselves worthy partners in galactic civilization, only to discover that their perceived weakness had been their greatest diplomatic asset. What about the extremist factions? Asked Defense Secretary Kim. That's where things get dangerous, Foreign Minister Adams replied grimly. The Purity Coalition is calling for immediate military action to neutralize the human threat before we supposedly become too powerful to stop. They're claiming we're a pre-invasion force that's been infiltrating galactic society. The accusation was absurd, but fear rarely responded to logic. The galaxy was faced with the discovery that a species they had considered weak neighbors were actually capable of overwhelming force, and some factions were demanding preventive strikes. Military assessment? President Martinez asked. Defense Secretary Kim's expression was troubled. Our actual military forces are designed for homeland defense against conventional galactic technology. We never anticipated having to fight the entire galaxy. The question is whether we could win such a conflict. Could we? According to preliminary analysis, yes, easily. But the cost in galactic lives would be catastrophic. We're talking about the potential extinction of multiple species. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had accidentally positioned itself as the galaxy's ultimate predator, while maintaining the mindset of peaceful neighbors. The disconnect between capability and intention was creating a crisis that threatened to spiral into galactic war. On the frontier world of New Olympia, Human colonist Maria Santos was experiencing the changing galactic perception firsthand. The mining station where she worked had been home to dozens of species for over 50 years, but now she found herself eating lunch alone as alien coworkers avoided contact. "It's not personal," explained her supervisor, a friendly Kexarian named Blef who had worked alongside humans for decades. "But the crew is nervous. They've been watching those videos from the demonstration. Blef, you've known me for 8 years. Do I seem like some kind of secret warrior?" "That's exactly the problem, Maria. You seem completely normal, just like always. But now everyone knows that normal for humans includes abilities that could, well, could what?" Blef's chitinous features shifted uncomfortably. "Could end a conflict before most species would even realize fighting had started." The conversation highlighted the impossible situation humanity found itself in. They couldn't demonstrate weakness because their strength was already exposed. They couldn't hide their capabilities because the galaxy was demanding transparency. And they couldn't explain that their abilities were purely defensive because nobody believed that species with such overwhelming advantages wouldn't eventually use them. Master Chen, now the most famous human in the galaxy, despite his preference for quiet teaching, found himself at the center of the diplomatic storm. Requests for interviews poured in from across known space, while intelligence agencies analyzed every public statement he had ever made. "The children are confused," he told Ambassador Harrison during one of their frequent consultations. "They don't understand why their normal lessons have become galactic news. Some are becoming afraid to participate in routine exercises. And the parents? Demanding answers we don't have. How do you explain to people that the galaxy is afraid of their children's homework assignments?" The absurdity of the situation would have been amusing if the consequences weren't so serious. Humanity was facing potential galactic war because their version of elementary physical education exceeded other species' military training. As reports continued to flood in from across the galaxy, one thing became clear. The viral video of Sarah's casual combat demonstration had shattered the galactic order. What came next would depend entirely on whether the galaxy chose fear or wisdom in responding to the revelation that their weakest neighbors had always been their strongest. The child who had unknowingly started the crisis was at home, doing homework and wondering why her grandmother's training sessions had become the subject of news broadcasts. To her, the techniques she had demonstrated were as natural and unremarkable as reading or writing. To the galaxy watching, they represented the end of the world. As they knew it, the crisis reached its breaking point when the Purity Coalition launched their preemptive strike against the human colony world of Haven's Rest. 12 warships, representing the combined military might of 6 species, dropped out of hyperspace with weapons charged and shields raised. Their mission was simple: demonstrate galactic resolve by destroying a human settlement before humanity could reveal even more dangerous capabilities. What they found waiting for them changed everything. The colony's defense consisted of exactly what intelligence reports had indicated: 3 obsolete patrol ships, a handful of automated defense platforms, and what appeared to be a civilian population of 50,000 humans. No hidden weapons, no secret military installations, no signs of the advanced technology that should have accompanied their demonstrated capabilities. Admiral Korthvek of the Coalition fleet opened communications with grim satisfaction. "Human colony, you will surrender immediately for relocation. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force." The response came from Mayor Sarah Chen, the same Sarah whose childhood video had started the galactic crisis, now grown to adulthood and serving as the colony's elected leader. "Admiral Korthvek, this is Mayor Chen of Haven's Rest. We cannot surrender as we have done nothing wrong. However, we would welcome the opportunity to discuss your concerns through peaceful negotiation." Her calm tone carried the same unshakable confidence that had characterized human responses throughout the crisis. To the Coalition forces, it sounded like arrogance from a doomed settlement. "You have 1 hour to begin evacuation procedures," Admiral Korthvek declared. "After that, we will commence bombardment." What followed was the shortest military engagement in galactic history. Mayor Chen's response was broadcast across all frequencies, ensuring that every government in the galaxy would witness what came next. "Admiral, I truly regret that you've chosen this course of action. Please understand that what happens now is not our preference." The words seemed like empty defiance from a helpless colony. Then the impossible began to unfold. The first indication that something was wrong came when coalition ship sensors began detecting movement throughout the colony. Not vehicles or weapon systems, but individual humans, thousands of them moving with coordinated precision across the settlement's surface. "Sir," reported the fleet's tactical officer, "the colonists appear to be launching themselves." Launching themselves? What does that mean? The answer became clear as human figures began appearing in space around the coalition ships. Not in spacecraft or wearing spacesuits,